if we look to the answer as to why for so many years we achieved so much, prospered as no other people on earth, it was because here in this land we unleashed the energy and individual genius of man to a greater extent than has ever been done before. Freedom and the dignity of the individual have been more available and assured here than in any other place on earth. The price for this freedom at times has been high, but we have never been unwilling to pay that price. Those who say that we're in a time when there are no heroes, they just don't know where to look. The sloping hills of Arlington National Cemetery, with its row upon row of simple white markers bearing crosses or stars of David, they add up to only a tiny fraction of the price that has been paid for our freedom. Each one of those markers is a monument to the kind of hero I spoke of earlier. Their lives ended in places called Belleau Wood, the Argonne, Omaha Beach, Salerno, and halfway around the world on Guadalcanal, Tarawa, Pork Chop Hill, the Chosin Reservoir, and in 100 rice paddies and jungles of a place called Vietnam. Under one such marker lies a young man, Martin Treptow, who left his job in a small-town barber shop in 1917 to go to France with the famed Rainbow Division. There on the Western Front, he was killed trying to carry a message between battalions under heavy artillery fire. We're told that on his body was found a diary. On the flyleaf, under the heading, My Pledge, he had written these words: America must win this war. Therefore I will work, I will save, I will sacrifice, I will endure. I will fight cheerfully and do my utmost as if the issue of the whole struggle depended on me alone. We must realize that no arsenal or no weapon in the arsenals of the world is so formidable as the will and moral courage of free men and women. It is a weapon our adversaries in today's world do not have. It is a weapon that we as Americans do have. Let that be understood by those who practice terrorism and prey upon their neighbors. As for the enemies of freedom, those who are potential adversaries, they will be reminded that peace is the highest aspiration of the American people. We will negotiate for it, sacrifice for it. We will not surrender for it now or ever. We are Americans.
I have come here to chew bubble gum and kick ass. And I'm all out of bubble.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages. Welcome to the Bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show, live and direct from the SHR Media Studios, 2 miles away from the belly of the beast. I am broadcasting behind enemy lines in occupied California, and the belly of the beast, the locus of evil on the entire left coast and perhaps in the entire nation. 2 miles that way, the Capitol building, the state of California, where the brimstone and sulfurous gases issue. Bad nights, perhaps like tonight, you can smell them wafting in the corridors of downtown Sacramento. California is a place you should never visit. Spend no money here, buy nothing from this state. And on that, you've got a belly up to the bar. We've kept your seat, and it's great to see you back. Flackbait is going to be your bartender tonight. He pours with the best of them, and the lava lamp is, in fact, lighted to my left, your right, meaning that you can listen and chat at shrmedia.com. You can watch on the SHR Media YouTube live page and the SHR Media YouTube channel. I should say Facebook page. We don't water our drinks like we don't water our conversation. Politics, religion, crime, culture, economics, race, sex, science, law. We talk about it all here at the Saloon. Nothing is sacred. The speech is free. But the booze is not. All that we ask is that you flush the toilet, jiggle the handle, and don't forget to tip your waitress. Tonight will be challenging. Tonight will be... It's a test of BZ's will. It will be BZ versus the air conditioner. And we'll see who gives out first. Well, no, I know who gave out first. The air conditioner gave out first. So in Sacramento today, it was 96 degrees. Yesterday, it was about 98. And so when I stepped into the studio this evening, it was, let's see, according to the thermostat over there, and by the way, it's been set on cool for over a week. It's set at 70, and in here it's 88. BZ doesn't do heat real damn well, just thought I'd tell you. However, that said, today is Tuesday. It's May 29th. The month is almost over. The year of our Lord 2018. And tonight for a guest, I have the lugubrious Dan Butcher. He of High Plains Media fame. And we haven't spoken to Dan for probably at least 3 weeks, and it may be even a month, because Dan has been certainly very busy. He was doing, if I'm not mistaken, he was doing primaries, or he was covering either local or state elections last Tuesday, and wasn't available then. And then, of course, we had a whole bunch of holidays and whatnot in between. Speaking of holidays, I had to play that Ronald Reagan clip for Memorial Day. That was his Memorial Day speech. As a matter of fact, I don't know if you caught it, but there were 2 or 3 times, a minimum of 2 that I heard, where in the process of reading that speech, his throat caught. Because it meant so much to Ronald Reagan to honor our soldiers. And Ronald Reagan, if he was nothing else, he was in fact the true great communicator. As I say, tonight I have Dan Butcher on. It's, at this point, I'm hoping for a 2-hour night. If at the end of the first hour, I can already feel the sweat running right down my back. Right into the Mark I Model 1 BZ ass crack. And that's a little disconcerting at this early stage of the game. But we're going to keep a good mind about us and see how long we can keep the show rolling. That will be a challenge indeed. Wherever you... Oh, by the way, where are my manners? There was Whiskey Dale in chat. Mike's in chat. Mary Brockman is in chat. And Mary's chair is, of course, awaiting her, as it normally does. There were some comments made, and we're going to get into this when Dan calls. And I just happened to see this. Now, we're going to talk, and I want Dan's opinion on Roseanne being canceled today by ABC, I believe. And she happened to say some things about Valerie Jarrett. Well, the interesting point about that is later on today, from truepundit.com, this article came out, which I was not aware of. But before I even get into this article, the whole thing about Valerie Jarrett and the Obamas is sufficiently creepy to, I believe, creep out most people. Now, Valerie Jarrett was the person who a lot of people think was actually running things in the Obama White House. Now, whether that's true or not, I'm not sure that anybody on the outside will ever know. We may not. I'm not certain. In any event, she's been inexorably linked to Barack Obama for quite some time. After Obama left the White House, here's the creepy part. Now, I was watching, and it came out in a number of articles and from a lot of newspapers and whatnot from the D.C. area, that Obama everybody suspected that he was going to go back to Hawaii for a while, have a house built, etc. And he may, in fact, still be building a house in Hawaii. I can't say. What I can say is that he selected a house in the D.C. area in a nice, snooty area, and had a very large wall built around the house because he still gets Secret Service protection, and there have to be limits, security limits to ingress and egress. Egrets, I've had a few. In any event, in building that house, and it's not a small house, I've seen photographs, multi-story, mostly comprised of brick in the front, if my memory serves. But the odd thing about that is that when he left the White House, he took some people with him. That is to say, Barack Obama. Well, of course he took some people with him, BZ. He took Michelle. He probably took the two girls. He may have taken his pet gecko. Who knows? Who can say? Well, oddly enough, he happened to take another person with him into his house, the one that he and his wife live in, and that's Valerie Jarrett. Now, if that isn't one of the creepiest things you could possibly think of, I don't know what is. Welcome to Simone, and one viewer. Glad to see you here. That said, when I first heard that, the word creepy immediately popped into my brain. Anyway, here's from TruePundit.com. And I didn't know this, but funny that it comes on the heels of this brouhaha today with Roseanne and her comment, which we will get into. One of Chicago's biggest slumlords profited from ghetto property scheme, backed by State Senator Obama. Well, gee, okay, let's look at the story and see who that might be. Go down here. I see a photograph. The squat brick buildings of Grove Park Plaza, in a dense neighborhood that Barack Obama represented for 8 years as a state senator, hold 504 apartments subsidized by the federal government for people who can't afford to live anywhere else. But it's not safe to live here. About 99 of the units are vacant, many rendered uninhabitable by unfixed problems such as collapsed roofs and fire damage. Mice scamper through the halls. Battered mailboxes hang open. Sewage backs up into kitchen sinks. In 2006, federal inspectors graded the condition of the complex an 11 on a 100-point scale, a score so bad the buildings now face demolition. Valerie Jarrett, a senior advisor to Obama's presidential campaign and a member of his finance committee. Jarrett is the chief executive of Habitat Company, which managed Grove Park Plaza from 2001 until this winter, and co-managed an even larger subsidized complex in Chicago that was seized by the federal government in 2006 after city inspectors found widespread problems. Are they saying that Valerie Jarrett is a slumlord? Apparently so. Grove Park has become a symbol for some in Chicago of the broader failures of giving public subsidies to private companies to build and manage affordable housing, an approach strongly backed by Obama as the best replacement for public housing. As a state senator, the presumptive Democrat presidential nominee co-authored an Illinois law creating a new pool of tax credits for developers. As U.S. Senator, he pressed for increased federal subsidies, and as a presidential candidate, he has campaigned on a promise to create an affordable housing trust fund that could give developers an estimated $500 million a year. So, good to know. Valerie Jarrett. Slumlord. Wow. Good to know. Mary Brockman in chat says Netflix should face demolition. Well, perhaps so. Perhaps so. Dan, give me a call, dude. Because if not, I can tell you right now, this is going to be a 1-hour show. Because me and the heat don't mix real well. And we almost didn't have a show anyway. I had to give a telephone call to Sackhead Sean because I wasn't able to get Skype up and running early. And then I finally realized that if I had somebody else heretofore... Why am I going inside this? This is almost way too much inside baseball. Anyway, it's the Heat versus BZ, and we're going to see which one gives out first. And let's go to this little story in the meantime while Dan calls in. Illinois recently dodged a bullet. And then it leads with its chin towards more bullets. And it makes no sense whatsoever. Now, from CNN.com, and this is actually a good story, but it's balanced with craziness because it's Illinois. And Illinois is leftist central, sort of in the Midwest. This is from CNN, as I indicated. This officer stopped a school shooter before anybody got hurt. An Illinois school resource officer is being praised as a hero for intervening, and this occurred a couple of weeks ago. But I'm reading it now for a very distinct reason, and you will understand. An Illinois school resource officer is being praised as a hero for intervening when a former student opened fire Wednesday morning at Dixon High School. U.S. Vice President Mike Pence lauded the heroic actions of Dixon police officer Mark Dallas. Now, if that ain't a cool name, I don't know what is. Who shot and wounded the gunman. Another example of the brave work performed by law enforcement each and every day. Lives were saved thanks to the heroic actions of school resource officer Mark Dallas, Pence said on Twitter. Suspect Matthew Milby faces 3 charges of aggravated discharge of a firearm and a $2 million bond. Illinois State Police said more charges are going to be filed. The 19-year-old former student opened fire near the school auditorium where students had gathered for graduation ceremony rehearsal, the statement said. The suspect fled the school and Dallas chased him, Dixon Police Chief Stephen Howell said in a news conference. The suspect continued to shoot at the officer and the officer returned fire, Howell said. The suspect was taken to the hospital for wounds for non-life-threatening injuries. Heavy sigh. He'll be transported to jail after he's released from the hospital, the police said. So, 2 things occurred simultaneously, I noted. The story wasn't carried immediately and placed on the A-list. No one in the American media maggot arena wanted to lead with, it takes a good guy with a gun to defeat a bad guy with a firearm. Funny how that works out. And the officer who stopped the shooter was not immediately identified. They may have had the name, but they decided not to, the American media maggots, decided not to run with it. And which, they would have done had the reverse been true or it had been a shooting where a darker-skinned individual of higher melanin count was shot and or injured. And those are facts in evidence. Not one student was killed. Not one student was injured. They were proverbial sitting ducks otherwise. Students and administrative members were complacent in a school auditorium practicing for graduation. They were in what in the firearms business is known as condition white. There existed no reason to think otherwise. So the school resource officer, Mark Dallas, exists in his work world primarily between conditions yellow and orange. His radar and cop primal instincts were working well on that day. That happened to be May 16th. Specifically, he did his job, as opposed to Broward County Deputy Scott Peterson. He failed and the system in Florida failed terribly.
It was just after 8 a.m., gunshots near the gym where seniors at Dixon High School were gathering for graduation practice.
Shot fired at Dixon High School. Shot fired at Dixon High School.
One of the gym teachers ran in, told everybody to go. He looked white as a ghost. And then all of a sudden, there's just teachers saying, go, 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 get out of here.
Students barricade themselves in classrooms as school resource officer Mark Dallas, an armed cop, confronts the 19-year-old male suspect who runs. Gunfire is exchanged. The suspect is shot in the shoulder and arrested.
A lot of things went right today when a great many of them could have gotten wrong.
All due to the hero in the hallways.
You see it all over the news and you never think it would happen to you.
I feel like we're a fairly safe town, but all it takes is one child to snap.
Police have not identified the shooter, but say he's a former student. Motive unknown. Brandon Steele calls him a former friend.
But I knew he was a little crazy when it came to guns. He had a couple guns, and they weren't just your average .22.
Police credit everyone at the school for doing as they're trained, especially that school resource officer who ran towards the gunfire, thwarting potential catastrophe.
We are forever indebted to him for his service and his bravery.
A hero who saved an untold number of lives. Blake McCoy, NBC News, Chicago.
Hey, NBC News fans, thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking on that button down here, and click on any of the videos over here to watch the latest interviews, show highlights, and digital exclusives. Thanks for
Okay,
watching.
enough of that. I have so many tabs open right now, by the way, that I'm traveling through my tab list trying to find the original article that I wrote on this, and I have yet to find it. I have 34 tabs open, and there we go. I finally found the article. So what do leftists, now we know that that shooting occurred May 16th. So what do leftists in Illinois suggest about that? Well, I hope you're sitting down. Now, this is from newschannel20.com, and this occurred just a short time before that school shooting. This is what Illinois really wants. Bill looks to replace school resource officers with social workers. Let that sink in. Springfield, Illinois. The recent amount of threats in schools is prompting Illinois lawmakers to make changes. Well, that sounds good on its face, doesn't it? Sure it does. Some people are not happy about what it entails. Some legislators are looking to get rid of school resource officers, SROs, and replace them with social workers. SROs say that for schools, they are important assets for safety and for students. You know, I think kids sometimes think twice about doing certain things knowing you're inside that building. Illinois School Resource Officer for Triad School District, Kip Heinley, said. But some lawmakers want to take the money that funds them in the schools and give it to mental health services. Now, that's an absolutely wonderful idea, don't you think? Sure you do. Is that not the perfect ideal of leftists today? What could possibly go wrong? There's actually very tangible benefits, the article writes and continues. Counselors are needed in a wide variety of situations, whether it's helping a child adjust to a divorce, to helping a child to adjust to a tragedy in a family too, clinical psychologist Dr. Bill Mordock said. The bill is currently being held on calendar and says it will not have a fiscal impact on the Illinois State Board of Education. As I said before at the beginning, bottom line is this: it takes a good guy with a gun to stop a bad guy with a gun. A knife won't work. Harsh words, multisyllabic words proffered by a school counselor, that won't work. Let's see, sarcasm won't work. Please won't work. Logic won't work. Good wishes won't work. A discussion about multiculturalism won't work. Placating won't work. Acquiescence won't work. And goodwill, we've got lots of goodwill. I'm sorry, that won't work. The inherent nature of man is evil, not good. Why else would we need the Ten Commandments, for example? Why else would we need the rule of law or foundational documents? Proving once again that leftists may be educated, but truly what they learn, absolutely nothing. We're going to switch gears here for a second. I'm going to talk about a situation involving a man whose life was abjectly destroyed. And it was destroyed for politics. And this will become the future if leftists have their way. And I'll give you this man's name in just a moment. Let's see, we've got about 4 more minutes to the bottom of the hour break, and I can guarantee you this, if Dan does not call in tonight, as it appears he is not going to, this is going to be, folks, a 1-hour show, because already the shirt underneath this shirt is soaking wet, because it's about 89 degrees in the studio right now. This is going to be destroyed for politics. This is going to be the new normal because, after all, Democrats, leftists, and the deep state and the American media maggots are beginning to realize shit like this works. You want to destroy conservatives? Just lay a lawsuit on them, okay? It's immaterial if it's valid or not, and force them into bankruptcy as they try to defend themselves. Now, this is a story from the UK Daily Mail. God damn you to hell. Former Trump campaign consultant explodes at Democrat Senate aides after he loses his house to legal fees in witch hunt congressional Russian probe. Former Trump campaign advisor Michael Caputo says he spent $125,000 on lawyers to comply with the demands of the Senate Intelligence Committee. He lived in Russia for 2 decades, but insists he knows nothing about any links between Trump's campaign and the Kremlin. He delivered a scathing rebuke to Senate aides Tuesday, saying, "God damn you to hell for making him sell his house and jeopardize his children's future. I want to know who cost us so much money, who crushed our kids, who forced us out of our home, all because you lost an election," he told Democrats. Caputo also says Democrat aides are helping a former committee staffer who is continuing to add to the salacious anti-Trump dossier, the dirty dossier. So let's listen to what Michael Caputo had to say about the situation on Tucker Carlson tonight.
Thanks for inviting me.
So you've been interviewed by the investigation, the Mueller investigation, is that correct?
Yes, today at noon I spent 3 hours with investigators in the special counsel's office.
What did you learn?
I learned they're still looking at Russian collusion. They're still looking for it. While I wouldn't be asked about charges of obstruction or asked about financial crimes, I was there during the time when they believed that Russian collusion was initiated. That would be the only thing that they would ask me about. That certainly is the only thing we talked about.
That's not the only thing you talked about.
No, that is the only thing we talked about. In my mind, if anybody thinks that Russian collusion is off the table, they haven't visited with the Mueller team. Was there Russian collusion? Of course not. I mean, I think that they're looking down the avenue.
That's a pretty significant immediate denial from Michael Caputo.
News of all the evidence that they're putting together. I'll tell you, they know more about the Trump campaign than anybody that worked there, and they know more about what I did in 2016 than I do myself.
Well, I hope so.
They really do.
They spent a lot of money and a lot of time looking into it.
They have.
So what are they looking at specifically? Like, what did you learn? Where do they think the collusion took place?
We're going to have to go for a break right now. It's apparent that Dan Butcher is not going to call, and also it's also pretty obvious that this is a 1-hour show tonight. Folks, don't go away. Come right back.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Hey, it's Sean from the Sackheads Radio Show, also one of the owners here at the SHR Media Network. Are you opinionated? Have you ever wanted to do your own show? Have you ever heard somebody like the Sackheads and go, yeah, I could probably do that better? Well, now's your chance. Send me a 5-minute clip at sackheadsradio@gmail.com, and maybe you can be part of the SHR broadcasting team. sackheadsradio@gmail.com.
Broadcasting behind enemy lines in occupied California, a mere 2 miles from the state capital, the bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show can be heard every Tuesday and Thursday night at 8 p.m. Pacific and 11 p.m. Eastern, only on the SHR Media Network. Go to shrmedia.com to listen. You can also watch on the SHR Media Facebook page and the SHR Media YouTube channel. No goldfish were abused in the making of this ad.
When dirty politicians, shadow governments, and deceptive Islam blind the world with fake stream media smoke, their only fear is one man with a cane. I'm Dave Milner. Join me through shrmedia.com, highplanestalkradio.com, and the Western Free Radio Network at Spreaker, YouTube, and iTunes for a different perspective weekly on the Unpleasant Blind Guy. And catch me on Jeff Mitchell's EDL Radio on blogtalkradio.com. There's no surrender ever, because truth is not always pleasant.
Hey guys, it's Sackhead Clint. I'm excited to tell you about a brand new show here on the SHR Media Network. I'm teaming up with the one and only all-powerful, the bloviating Zeppelin, sitting here to my left, bringing to you a fresh new show here on the network. It's Against Tyranny. And we'll be picking up where the Sackheads left off. Excited to be with you, sir.
Sackheads Against Tyranny.
We're going to chat. We're going to chat Wednesday nights.
S-H-A-T.
Sackheads Against Tyranny.
Wednesday nights, 11 p.m. Oh, it's the same time, right? 11 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Pacific.
Same SAC time, same SAC channel.
Yep. SHRmedia.com.
See what I did there?
It's your business diva here, Melanie Collette. I am inviting you to a front row seat as I discuss some of the most intriguing details of wealth and finance with today's movers and shakers in the world of business. Listen in and discover financial truths on a global, domestic, and household scale. Uncover topics that will impact your wallet today and in the future. Money Talk with Melanie airs Monday through Friday, 5 p.m. East, 2 p.m. West, right here on SHR Media and High Plains Pundit Talk Radio. You can't afford to miss it.
Human by race, Christian by faith, American by nationality, and conservative by choice. Reverend Ralph J. Chittum Sr. is the right guy on SHR Media from 8:05 to 9 p.m. Monday through Friday. And if on the rare occasion I am ever wrong, I will still always be right. The right guy on SHR Media.
Hey, this is Michael Wright.
And I'm Shannon Wright.
Join us for The Right Way with Shannon and Mike, Monday through Thursday from 7 to 9 a.m. right here on SHR Media.
Why are they joining us?
For fun things like sports, politics.
Oh, maybe some news and entertainment?
And all kinds of other things.
Money and recipes and events, all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, so join us Monday through Thursday, 7 to 9 a.m. here on shrmedia.com.
Hey, BZ. So the plan's working. You got rid of Sacco. Sean is now stepping away.
I never even saw him.
And I know, and insidious. Insidious. You know, we talked about this for, for the last 3 years. And finally coming to fruition.
You know I'm still in the room, right?
It's almost like he's here still. Did you hear that?
Yeah, it's kind of.
It's amazing. It's kind of
at you.
It's kind of eerie.
Kind of a poltergeist.
Like a poltergeisty thing.
Yeah, Sackheads Against Tyranny.
You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Wow. Okay. You know, life still has lessons. And life throws curveballs at you now and then. And I think I learned another I'm in the process, I should say, of learning another very important lesson. And I'm going to relate this tale, and then you'll understand where I'm going with something that just occurred during the break. And that's this. You may or may not remember when I first had Alan Thomas on the show, and I did at least a week's promo for it. And Alan Thomas is big into Sasquatches, the paranormal. He's been on Paranormal Central with Jeffrey Gonzalez. He's been on television, all sorts of television and news shows, because he's a paranormal investigator and a Sasquatch hunter and knows everything about UFOs and the unexplained. And I thought this would be great to have him on the show because I met him before at a Sacramento paranormal conference that was held about 7 or 8 years ago now. So I've known him for a while, and I used to call into his show, etc. And I thought, what a great idea. What a great thing that would be. Have him on the show and talk to him about Sasquatches and UFOs and all sorts of unexplained kind of things. Well, Alan Thomas didn't show up. And I was a little bit upset because it kind of throws a curveball into a show when someone says that they're going to be on the show, and then you don't hear from them, and they don't send you a message, at least an hour before the show. Hey, I'm sorry, I can't make it. And I was a little wee bit torqued because of that, and I thought, okay, well, the other thing I learned is never go into a show unless you have enough material and show prep to complete the show, just in case somebody does that, because it's occurred to me before. Well, I was unhappy with Alan Thomas, and I decided, well, don't go 210 over 190 on him because you never know what happened. His car may have broken down or something like that. Well, I'm very glad that I did because it turns out that day, about 2 hours before the show, before the appearance, and I'd gotten messages from him all day saying, wow, I'm really looking forward to being on the show. And I didn't say anything bad. I was a little upset. I found out subsequently, about 3 days later, that, as I indicated, about 2 hours before the show, Alan Thomas had a heart attack. So as far as I'm concerned, that's a really good reason for not calling. Well, I just got a message from Dan Butcher, and he says, Mark, I'm at the ER with one of my kids. Sorry. So never excoriate people because bad things can happen, and now we got a pretty good idea. And send your blessings to Dan and hope that whatever is happening with his kid, that it'll be okay. So shoot some out there if you would. And you might have to put a couple of extra stamps on those blessings because he lives in Texas. And if you're far on the East Coast, then, just put a few more stamps on there and rush them immediately over to Dan Butcher. Before the break, we were talking about this guy named Michael Caputo, who was just basically a stringer on the Trump campaign in 2016. Not a major player by any stretch of the imagination, and yet essentially he was fiscally ruined because they kept tapping him and kept having him appear in court in front of various committees. And of course, when you do that, you have to have an attorney because no one walks in ill-equipped or unequipped to any of these things. And we were Michael Caputo, I should say, was talking to Tucker Carlson about that situation.
I don't really want to interfere with the investigation. I was warned about that.
Well, they warned you not to talk about it.
Well, they warned me to be careful about interfering with
exercising your freedom of speech.
Well,
they're not for that, is that right?
I get that, but my attorneys...
I get that. It's the center of our country.
I get that, but I'm just saying my attorneys also asked me to be careful about this, but I can tell you they're looking
So they're threatening and intimidating you, basically, it sounds like.
I'm not going to be friending them on Facebook today, if that's what you're asking. I don't find them to be very friendly people. What's it like to live in a country
where, having not been charged or convicted of any crime, a prosecutor can threaten you to shut up in public?
It's not nice, but I can tell you that it's nothing compared to the $125,000 in legal bills that I've stacked up for nothing. It's nothing compared to the death threats that my family and I are getting. It's nothing compared to the piece of a sniper rifle that came.
Listen to this. Death threats. He's an adjunct player at best, and yet his family is getting death threats. And listen to this.
In the middle of my wife last month. It's nothing compared to the way that they're trashing my family. What's happening to me and my family is happening to many other people in this investigation, and I'm just a witness. I can't imagine if somebody's a subject or a target what they're going to go through. But I can tell you this.
Wait, can I just back up for one sec? Since you just spoke to the investigators today, when they suggested, in the way that the mafia suggests, maybe you shouldn't do that. What do you think the penalty would be if you ignored that suggestion?
I don't think there would be any penalty, but I think I might be called back for a little visit. And every time I come to Washington for this bogus investigation, whether it's the Senate, the House, or whatever, I get to pay another $20, $25 grand.
So they just bankrupt you. That's no big deal.
Not just me. I think other people, too. I mean,
not just me. other people too. You see the point of reading this?
Tin Cup isn't a good look, but I've had to open a GoFundMe page. I mean, this is. I certainly didn't sign up for this when I went to work for the Trump campaign, and I will never, ever work on another Republican campaign for as long as I live.
Let that sink in. You want a chilling effect? Listen to what he just said. This is just one guy who was hit with probably a subpoena, told to appear, had to bring an attorney. Every time he appears, it's 20, 25K. Ding, ding, ding. And there goes your savings, etc., etc., etc. Some of you who know me know that I'm encountering a very similar situation. Hey, but nobody cares. The state governments don't care. The federal governments don't care. They have an untapped, vast amount of cash that they can use to fuck you over. And that's what Michael Caputo is saying. So it is, in fact, having a chilling effect. And now he's to the point, this is just one guy, where he's saying, hey, my working on any campaign now for Republicans, it's dead. Well, guess what? That's exactly what leftists, Democrats, and the American media maggots want. They're getting their wish.
I mean, and I think that's part of this, Tucker. I think this is a punishment strategy. I think they want to destroy the president. They want to destroy his family. They want to destroy his businesses. They want to destroy his friends so that no billionaire in, let's say, 15 years wakes up and tells his wife, you know what, the country's broken and only I can fix it. His wife will say, are you crazy? Did you see what happened to Donald Trump and everybody around him? So that's what this is about.
So they've so intimidated you, and again, they're not charging you with anything. There's no allegation that you committed a crime. But they've so intimidated you that you can't talk about your conversation on this show right now, and you're retiring from campaign politics forever.
I'm never going to work on a Republican campaign again unless somebody legally indemnifies me. Clearly, these lawsuits after the fact are the new Democratic strategy. When you lose, you still win. I'm never going. I don't think anybody should work on a Republican campaign again unless they're legally indemnified. I think if you do, you're crazy. My legal fees are going to be at least $125,000. That's more than I make in a year. That's more than where I live in East Aurora, New York. That's more than most people in my town make. And I don't know how we're going to pay that off, me and my family. That's
so it's working. It's working. It's working. And trust me, when he suggests, it's not a suggestion, it's fact. That's the purpose of this. It's punitive. Now, you can't hurt Donald John Trump, the guy with the dead orange cat on his head. He has literally billions of dollars. And by the way, he's not taking a presidential salary. What he would customarily be using as a salary, his due presidential salary. Don't know if you know this or not, but he's funneling that off, by the way, to charity.
Washington money. That's New York money.
Well, it's disgusting.
But I can tell you this, Tucker.
We're almost out of time.
They're looking at WikiLeaks. They're looking at Guccifer. They're looking at DC leaks. Everything that you see in the media that's been leaked out there, that's certainly what they're looking at. And I think they're pretty focused on this.
It's unbelievable. Michael, thank you.
Thank you.
Godspeed.
And it's absolutely believable. It's not unbelievable. It's 100% believable. Got about 15 minutes left. I'd like you to hear this because there's one brave man who happens to be speaking on the Second Amendment, and he's telling you the truth about the Second Amendment. And maybe it's not a man that you would customarily think would support the Second Amendment, and it's sad to even think that. But let's listen to what this man has to say about the Second Amendment.
Greens folks, team my back for another drive time. Look, I saw this story. What they're doing up there in Connecticut, they passed some new laws.
By the way, this is Derek Grayson, that's his name, who was running in Georgia for Senate.
That will require citizens to register, I think it's assault weapons and high-capacity magazines. Now, I've said this even when I've been out campaigning, some of the meetings that I've gone to. I made a point. The Second Amendment is not about hunting. It is about protecting ourselves from a tyrannical government. That's right. I said it. I also said,
bingo.
Make no mistake about it, gun control is not about crook control. It's about America control. That's what they want to do. And
Thank you.
No. It's about all the violence. Get out of my face with that. Look at Chicago, the gun violence in that place, a war zone. So, and this thing, the only reason we've had a resurgence in talks over new gun control measures is because white kids have been getting killed in these schools. But black folk have been killing each other like this, gun violence, for the last 20 years. Nobody talked about it.
Oh, hell, longer than that.
They didn't give a damn. But when the white kids started getting killed, I'm sorry, that's just, it is what it is.
It is what it is, and he's telling the truth.
The media, the press, politicians, they use race as a tool. They use it to keep us divided and to keep us swinging from one end of the pendulum to the other on emotional tirades that have absolutely nothing to do with the real problem that's taking place. At any rate, crooks don't give a damn about gun control laws. They're crooks. That's what they do.
It's their job description, as you well know.
Is about law-abiding citizens, and in particular, white middle-class Americans. Yes, who owns most of the guns legally in this country? White middle-class Americans. They want to know who you are. They want to know what you have, and they want to know where you live. That's all this is about. This is the first step. The people in Connecticut better do what the folk did over there in Colorado, recall their politicians or whoever it is that is responsible for putting this into play, because now anybody that does not go and register, they are instantly felons. It is what it is. Y'all need to stand and see what's going on with this country and what they're trying to do. Obama has even been laying the groundwork to prohibit other people from getting guns. This thing, one of his points when he gave that address where he listed a number of things to do that they could do, one of them on the list, doctors, don't be afraid to let us know if you feel that somebody might be a threat. He said, basically, to hell with doctor-patient privilege. The military, keeping guys who had to deal with...
By the way, what Mr. Grayson means is Obama was advocating for doctors asking patients if they have firearms in the house under the guise of, well, it's unhealthy to have a firearm in the house. I've been waiting all this time for my doctor to address that so that I can give a rejoinder to him that begins with the letter F.
Psychiatrists in the military from being able to own guns. Kids that are on Ritalin, they'll be the next in line. I'm telling you, man, they laying it out. The only thing that holds our government back from going just wholesale ballistic on us is the Second Amendment and still our ability to vote.
But what does the Second Amendment protect? First and foremost, our First Amendment.
We keep abdicating our responsibility.
Because you think the government wants this guy right here to be saying, he's a black man. Let's be honest. You think the government, leftists, Democrats, the American media maggots, you think they want him saying that about the so-called black community, particularly in Chicago, as he points out? And so what he's saying is the truth. They don't want him to be saying that. They want him to stand in line with all the rest of the black Americans, nod up and down and say, yes, sir, give me more free cheese and I'll do your bidding, whatever the hell that bidding may be. This man has an independent mind, and leftists, Democrats, and the American media maggots cannot fucking stand that.
To fire those that don't do what they're supposed to be doing, representing
quarter and a hat,
the will of the people and protecting states' rights, we will find ourselves disarmed. And when we become disarmed, it's over. It's over. That is what that is.
Ask Australia. Ask the UK. Ask most of Europe.
And I just don't know how else to tell you. But y'all need to wake up and smell this coffee on these gun control issues. Don't let them take your guns. Because when they take your guns, when they disarm you, lights out. It's over. T-Mod out. Drive time till next time.
Absolutely true. Well, since I played that, I'm going to play you an audio cut from possibly the last honest police chief in the country. Now, I'm told he retired just very recently, within the month or so. But here was him giving a press conference about some shootings. And you've got to hear, he is the chief of police. Let's see. And he's from Milwaukee. He's the police chief of Milwaukee.
Well,
he's about to tell you the truth that no other police chiefs will. Because they're all political animals now. Most all of them.
there are a lot of things. Certainly there are some folks in this community that are legitimately grieving, and we heard from them. We heard a lot of folks who believe the First Amendment only applies to them and took great pains to shout down anybody that disagreed with them. Despite my ongoing disagreements with the police union, I have to say that their members tonight conducted themselves, I thought, with great restraint, given the ad hominem invective that was being unleashed on their work personally and the police department generally. So, you know, this is a controversy. This is a tragedy. I've said it over and over again. It's a tragedy for the family, tragedy for Officer Manning. It's a tragedy for the community. But I'm not blind to the fact that there's a lot of people lining up to take advantage of this tragedy to flog their own agendas, and that was clear tonight as well.
You were accused of saying something to one of the protesters or one of the people in the stands.
Get ready.
He accused you of...
You know, he was making so much noise, I have no idea what he's talking about, but he feels insulted. Too bad.
What's your response to...
That's the first time and probably the last you'll ever hear a chief of police in a major city telling somebody who took offense, too bad.
Some of the people that thought you were being disrespectful by being on your phone and not being attentive to them.
Well, I was on my phone, and yes, that's true. I was following developments with a 5-year-old little girl sitting on her dad's lap who just got shot in the head by a drive-by shooting. And if some of the people here gave a good goddamn about the victimization of people in this community by crime, I take some of their invective more seriously. The greatest racial disparity in the city of Milwaukee is getting shot and killed. Hello. 80% of my homicide victims every year are African American. 80% of our aggravated assault victims are African American. 80% of our shooting victims who survived their shooting are African American. Now, they know all about the last 3 people that have been killed by the Milwaukee Police Department over the course of the last several years. There's not one of them can name one of the last 3 homicide victims we've had in this city. Now, there's room for everybody to participate in fixing this police department, and I'm not pretending we're without sin. But this community's at risk, all right. And it's not because men and women in blue risk their lives protecting it. It's at risk because we have large numbers of high-capacity, quality firearms in the hands of remorseless criminals who don't care who they shoot. Now, I'm leaving here to go to that scene. And I take it personally, okay? We're going up there, and there's a bunch of cops processing a scene of a dead kid. And they're the ones that are going to be out there patrolling and stopping suspects that may have guns under the front seat. They're the ones that are going to take the risks of their lives to try to clean this thing up. All right? We're responsible for the things we get wrong, and we take action. We've arrested cops, we've fired cops, and so on. But the fact is that the people out here, some of them, who had the most to say, are absolutely MIA when it comes to the true threats facing this community, and it gets a little tiresome. And when you start getting yelled at for reading the updates of the kid that gets shot, yeah, you take it personal, okay? Now, no offense, but I'm going up there now.
I can't be any more succinct than that. At all. Truth. A truth teller in government for once. And that's astounding.
Monsieur has been locked!
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, thanks for listening to the Bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon on the SHR Media Network, live and direct from Sacramento. Speaking of Sacramento, tomorrow night, God, I hope the air is working, and it probably won't. Sackheads Against Tyranny. If you want to contact me, you'll find me on Twitter at bzepp, my blog at bloviatingzeppelin.net, promotional consideration by the Lockheed Martin Skunk Works, and the Boeing Company. If it ain't Boeing, I ain't going. Also, thanks to Pratt & Whitney engines, thrust you can trust. And my tiaras are by My Little Pony. Thank you tonight for listening so kindly, and thanks for listening live. Thank you for being involved in the chat room, and thanks for being involved in listening in the podcast. Maybe some things will get fixed, maybe they won't. Folks, God bless. Take care. Be safe. Tomorrow night, Sackheads Against Tyranny. Excelsior.
Everybody quiet down now and get some sleep.
Good night, everybody.
Good night, Mama. Good night, Ben. Good night, everyone.
Good night, Mama. Good night, Daddy.
Good night, children. Good night, Daddy. Good night, Elizabeth.
Good night, John Boy. Good night, Jim Bob. Good night, Jim Bob.
Good night, Jim Bob.
What's going on? I was asleep. What's everybody doing?
Good
Good night, Jim Bob.
Good night, and good luck.